In the past week, I've gotten 3 different zines from 3 different sources in the mail. And I've said before that I like getting these little, very inexpensive comics in the mail. It's just kind of fun instead of having to read a big graphic novel or read a bunch of issues. Just read something that's easy, it's very portable. So I just thought I'd talk about all 3 of them. The first one is the November-December 1974 reprints of the Complete Peanuts. I talked about these in a previous video. This is someone that I met on Instagram, goes by the name Mr. Pierce Teach. He's a teacher in Ohio, and he just did a zine reprinting the dailies for 1974 for each month. This cost me next to nothing, so I just think this was more like a passion project that he did for the year. So, and here it just says it collects various November-December peanut strips left out of last month's collection. And then it's just the daily strips, and I just have to say that I really like these strips. I grew up reading Peanuts by Charles Schulz, and maybe because I'm of that age, but I still find the humor and the stories here I still find them funny. It's not like like a lot of times you see like old TV shows that you grew up with, or you read books or comics that you grew up with, and at the time you thought they were awesome, and then when you revisit them and as you get older, you look at them, you're like, oh, this is actually pretty terrible, but you didn't know. These are actually still well done, good humor, just fun, light reads, and it's testament that these are 50 years old and they're still relevant. And at the end, he draws a little 2-page explanation as to why he did it. This is the end of the series. I'm glad that I subscribed to the last 6 issues. These were fun. Once in a while you come in, long day, and then aside from the junk mail and the bills, you get something like this and something nice and light. So don't know if he'll do more. I don't think he will. I think there's like a 1-year project, but still, this is a lot of fun to get. Next is the monthly installment from the 6-zine subscription from Told to Tell. This is pretty inexpensive, and for this, every month you get small zine, a few pages, and it's all different types of work, all different types of comics. It's just everything, just something different, which is nice. It's sort of like getting those, those boxes that you get, like you pay a subscription, then you get stuff in the mail. You don't know what the stuff is. I know some comic stores have that, and I know there's some places that sell merch that have that just, you don't know what you get. So there's always like a little memo kind of explaining what the book is about. And this one is reprints of some of the work of Jim Osborne, who I am totally unfamiliar with, but was an underground cartoonist born in Texas, moved out to San Francisco, and did a lot of work in the 70s. And some of his work was reprinted by Fantagraphics, I believe, in 2018. Per his notes, yes, The Black Prince was the title of that collection. And so this is just some of the stories that are reprinted here. And one of them is the suicide of Lupe Velez, who was an actress in the 20s and the 30s. It's interesting because after I read each one of these 3 stories, I actually read on the history of these people because I wanted to see how accurate these stories were, because some of these stories are so wild. It's like, is it so wild that it can't be true, or is it so wild because it is true? So as you can see, I'm not familiar with Jim Osborne's work, but Jim Osborne's work is really detailed and really lovely. And it's interesting because all the furniture and the rooms and everything, there's a lot of detail, and everything seems, the perspective looks good. But as you can see, the people, like the bodies look fine, but the faces are always like a little angular, a little pointed. It's almost like everything else is fine, but the faces in some cases could be a little bit, I don't want to say distorted, but just a little bit stylized, maybe. But again, this art is just really fantastic. And it's just a story of Lupe Velez, who, per one version of the events, decided to kill herself because the guy who was supposed to marry her, she was an actress in the 20s, the guy who was supposed to marry her left her at the altar, and so she committed suicide. She did this. That did happen. How those events actually unfolded. There's an official version. There's a few urban legends, and then there's one that was used in that book, Hollywood Babylon. This is the version that's used there. That's contested by people who say that is probably not accurate either. But all these stories are like that. But it's funny. It's sort of like when you have a movie and you have based on actual events, but that's just really means that, well, we're going to get some of the basic stuff down, but we're going to change it to make it more exciting, more interesting, because the actual events are interesting but don't translate well into a movie, or in this case, a comic. Second one is a story about Caterina Sforza, who was the daughter of a duke in Milan in the 1400s. And the last one is about Sonny Bean, who this is also considered to be an urban legend about a guy who went off with his wife, and they went off into the hills of Ireland, and they created this clan of, like, over time, like, inbreds, and there was anybody that was traveling by the road near where they lived, near the sea, they would be caught, and then they would be, robbed, caught, and then, like, they used to they'd be cannibalized. It's a great story. It's really fascinating. But again, there's a lot of urban legend to it. But again, I don't knock it for that, because a lot of things we see that are supposedly true stories are really not 100% true, because sometimes they feel like they have to, like, spice them up to make them palatable for a work of fiction. But this is a really nicely made, small little zine, 8 pages, didn't take a lot of time to read it. And I said, this work is really interesting. I'm going to probably try to look into more about Jim Osborne. Just really good work. Again, someone that I'm not familiar with. I'm not an underground comics expert, but this was just a lot of good stuff here. You can reach 3T by @ToldToTell on Instagram. Everything that he does, he'll announce it. And you just DM him, and he'll just take care of the rest. Everything's always done professionally well. Presentation's always good. Everything from him, he's what I consider a micro publisher, but everything is done top quality. And he published Told to Tell number 8 this year earlier, which to me was like the best looking comic I've seen in years. Just really beautiful piece of art. So, I'd check it out. Lastly is a comic from Chester Brown called Is War Real? I subscribe to Chester Brown's Patreon. It's the only Patreon I subscribe to. It's $1 a month, which is nothing. For that, you'll get usually monthly, maybe bi-monthly Substack posts that are pretty well written, usually about work that's gone on, like the recent film adaptation of his book, Paying for It, or other things that he finds of interest. Once a year or once in a while, he'll send these little mini comics out. Last year for Christmas, he sent 3 kind of Christmas themed ones. One was by him, one was with art by Seth and Joe Matt, and then there was another one that I forget who did the art on. So this year he sent this. He wanted to send a pamphlet relating to Paying for It, but he writes in a note that he just didn't have the time to do it, and he apologized, so he's working on it. So instead, he reprinted an essay that he read, and he always is nice enough to include a little note. And then he's so nice, he actually included another note saying, "I'm sorry this was late, but the Canadian postal workers were on strike." Just a really nice guy. So this is not really a comic, it's an essay. It's reprinted. The art that's here is by Chester Brown, and as he says, after Simon and Kirby. So, I mean, this is just a really good homage to the work that Simon and Kirby did for those war comics. But really the article, the essay itself, talks about the nature of war, and it's kind of an interesting, small, short, quick read. But the author talks about the definition of war that George Orwell, the author of 1984, had, and I always want to read it because I just thought it was fascinating. Quote, In the past, the ruling groups of all countries, although they might recognize their common interests and therefore limit the destructiveness of war, did fight against one another, and the victor always plundered the vanquished. In our own day, they are not fighting against one another at all. The war is waged by each ruling group against its own subjects, and the object of the war is not to make or prevent conquests of territory, but to keep the structure of society intact. So she discusses that quote, that definition. I thought that was really interesting because if you're looking at what's going on today, and this essay was written in 2024, if you're looking at what's going on today, there's a lot of truth to that, I think. So again, there's always something a little interesting that you'll get. The covers alone are great. There's no extra charge to them. There's these little fun things to get in the mail. It just comes in the post from Canada, and you can spend maybe 10, 15 minutes most reading it, and it's just light and fun and well done. And that's it. If you have the opportunity to like subscribe to any of these kind of zines or people that submit items like this, I'd recommend it. I think it's, like I said, it's a low cost way. You get something, it's light, easy to digest. It's something that you're not expecting. It's not like an ongoing comic with a creator that that kind of deal. It's just fun. And like I said, all three are great. As I said, you can go to Told to Tell for the zine, for the next zine subscription if they do it. Chester Brown's available on Patreon, $1 a month. And I think Mr. Pierce Teach is stopping this as of 2024, but you never know. But I still follow because it's an interesting account. That's it. Thanks.